I'm really excited to talk about one of my most favorite topics today, which is how do you actually create wealth? How do you go from like a loop of either being poor, frankly, or kind of staying consistent? I used to always talk about my own finances like it was like throwing like money into like a hollow bucket. And so like no matter how much money you would make, you'd still kind of stay the exact same. And so, I mean, just between you and I, to share that I started with next to no financial education. I learned absolutely nothing about money. My mom took care of all of my finances, and I did a bunch of dead end jobs that no matter how hard I worked, I didn't actually see my life change at all. So I would work very hard. I was a garbage man. I worked in Pizza Hut. I worked in retail, a bunch of different stores. Then I did other work where I would like work for camps and different kinds of things like that. And what I found was no matter how hard I worked, the money didn't change. As a result of that, I more or less created a learned helplessness around my own financial situation. Now, I, in my mind, differentiated there were either people that had money or didn't have money, and there were people that liked what they did or didn't like what they do. And so because I figured that I was one of the people that didn't have money, I needed to figure out something that I learned to like what I did, if that makes sense. And so again, just the very, very basics of like any and all financial education or understanding how to grow and change your financial circumstance is finances work in a lot of ways like physical health or like anything else, which is there are rules to the road. And the more that you get proper mentorship and have a plan, you can actually change your circumstance. And that for me was like the biggest like mind shift, because what I started realizing, especially when I was in college, I would hang out with people who actually achieved like wealth. Not again, like, you know, like how I grew up, like it was very like middle class. All these things are very, very weighted terms, obviously. Like, you know, everyone had like a home, cars, older cars, you know, kind of like the last thing my dad did when he inherited a bunch of money from whatever he inherited money from his mother passing was he bought a really nice car. He bought a 1989 Porsche 911, cherry red, like beautiful car. And that was like the craziest, like that was like crazy expensive. And I just remember like my mom and how she reacted to that. And it was just like so like uncouth. It was like, you know, like how could you spend that kind of money and whatever it might be. But I realized though when I went to college and I started like learning a little bit more about my Jewish background, my spiritual identity, was that a big part of Jewish education was experiential. And a big part of the Jewish experience is home hospitality meals, where on the Sabbath you would go and you'd experience a family meal with a family where we used to live. So like we would go visit either in La Jolla, California or Hancock Park neighborhood in Los Angeles. If you check the zip code and you kind of know the mean price of homes there, they're relatively substantial. Due to my great luck, I actually ended up getting paired up with not just some of the mentors or some of the families, but some of the more financially successful families there. And what I realized, which was so amazing, was that none of them started with money, not at all. And like, I just remember, again, in my mind, like this was like rap video status kind of stuff. Like, you know, this gorgeous, like sprawling mansion on the Malibu, like literally on the beach in Malibu. It just like, it looked like it was out of Home and Gardens magazine, you know, double Range Rovers parked next to each other, you know, like this, like, fireplace that was like the size of like insane, and you know, just like massive like corner lot mansion. Or you know, this other family that I was close to, like again, like he's literally driving a Bentley, and the synagogue they go to is like parked outside. There's like a Rolls like parked in this. I'm just like, what is this world? And the crazy thing is, I actually started to talk to these people and get to know them, and I realized not only are they family people and people of faith, but none of them started with money. And I was like, wait a minute, you're rich people, but you didn't start with money. Like, how in the world did you do that? And so, you know, one guy got a very small investment property, and he was doing completely different work, and then he got an inheritance of small property, like really like nothing, and he grew it into this empire. And somebody else went into nursing homes and healthcare and grew that tremendously, and actually a bunch of people did. And the crazy is the entire community, which is incredibly affluent, at least in Los Angeles, that whole community didn't exist in the 1950s. So you'd walk around and there's every single building is like big and been donated by all these people that have so much, and it's like none of this wealth existed. These people came to America destitute a couple of decades ago. And so that really started me being interested in how does one build up wealth. And so the most important first step is to realize that wealth and building wealth is literally a process. Yes, 100% God is involved from my perspective. And a big thing has to do with like, what's your education? What are you focusing on? What are the things that are around you? What's the vision that you have? And are you treating this like as something you can actually change, or are you very fatalistic about the process? The most important first thing when it comes to wealth is not to demonize it, right? Because a lot of times, because it's so easy to feel like have and have not, or these people are like that if you are the kind of person that is down on something else, you will push it away. And that is so true. So again, whenever I start working with people, they're like,
I hate sales. I'm like,
well, if you want to make money, you're going to have to learn how to sell, so it's better not to hate sales.
Oh, I hate people with money, or rich people suck.
If you'd like to acquire wealth, you probably shouldn't think that rich people suck, because you're going to not want to suck. So therefore you won't become rich. So it's learning to appreciate the fact that money is energy. Money is a resource. It doesn't mean you're good, doesn't mean you're bad. It definitely means though that if you want to attract it, you're going to have to be the kind of person that not only values it, but values how do you create it. game. You have to become a student of the game. So again, like there's all kinds of stuff that goes out there in terms of like different strategies. It is not what I'm going to talk about today. What I want to focus on first and foremost is learning how to fix your mindset around money. Number one is learn to love money. Learn to love money because if you love money, you will attract it. You will seek it out. It's not a bad thing. Growing up, when I started working out in high school, I had one friend that's like, I don't want to get my biceps too big. And my other friend looked at me and was like, how can you have biceps that are too big? So the whole idea is like, you don't want to put caps on it. One of the things I found, and again, it's really, really hard because like a lot of times when you're starting from a very humble beginnings and you had trouble paying the bills. I was $50,000 in credit card debt. I did not have any idea how I was going to pay any of the bills. I was broke as a joke. I didn't know anybody wealthy. But what I really had to do in the first place was start to actually appreciate the process of becoming wealthy. I had to start learning about people that had become wealthy. I had to start studying the players of the game. Again, if you want to be good in any sports, how many basketball players that are really trying to excel in their career aren't following Michael Jordan, weren't looking at Kobe Bryant, didn't learn the people in the game? And so for me, I deep dived into business success. I deep dived into biographies of people that have created tremendous wealth. Sam Walton, Steve Jobs, Steven Schwartzman. I would go all the way back to the original titans of industries, the railroad barons, Andrew Carnegie's, the Rockefellers, and there's so much resources out there now, the Jay-Z's and the George Lucas's and all of these people, and you start to see these are real people. They're real people, and they had a dream, and they had a vision, and they saw in their vision. Again, if you look at Conor McGregor when he was young and talking about like what he would see and how he would envision the whole thing. So number one is start to love the process of becoming wealthy. Number two is study people who've become wealthy. Number three is take action in order to become wealthy. Now again, that's a very big thing because most people don't actually know what they're doing. I've talked to people that are running coaching business or running a business in general. I ask them like, well, how much money do you want to be making? And they will come back and they'll be like, I don't know. It's like, what does that even mean? And they're like, I don't know. And you're like,
what?
So if you don't know how much money you want to make, this is like a free exercise that I mean, like people pay me a lot of money for this, but I'm giving it to you for free because you're watching, and thank you for that. I'll tell people like, think of an epic life. Go down and write down 10, 20, 50, 100 things that you want. I paid a tremendous amount of money to work with an amazing coach, and that was the first thing he started with. Most of us have no idea what we want. And then once we start thinking about what we want, immediately we start like feeling like super like, well,
who am I to have that? And like, I don't really want, like, ooh, what are the neighbors gonna say? And like, what am I gonna say? And
I had a mentor actually, which is also super important. Find mentors. Even when I was broke as a joke, I was always hanging out with people that had built wealth. And I was always asking them,
how do you think about this? How do you look at this? And I'd
sit at their big house and their big tables, and I'd sit in their pools, and I was like,
wow, how'd you build this and what was it like? And
I learned things. I learned how important sales was. I learned how important networks are. I learned how to think. I learned how to give. I learned how to like be leading with value. All these things. Literally just watching someone. The easiest thing to do is just to follow people who have what you want and see how they behave differently. They're not necessarily looking to how do I take money, but how do I give value? And then naturally the money will follow. I had a mentor, and this guy like had like the most gorgeous home in La Jolla and like beautiful views and everything like that, and like super close to him. And I thought there was like some mystical quality about him. But then what I realized was he's just a very, 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 very good hype man. He's a great salesman. So everything you talk to him about, he's passionate about it. He's selling you on it. You want to be a part of it. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So you're saying like, I don't have to be like a financial guru or wizard. I can barely act. I just have to be able to be passionate about ideas and to bring value to other people. And like, I watched him, and that's how he did it. And he did it
and again and again and again
in different places all around the world. It was like so inspiring. And he was always on the front edge of like every cause and like helping other people. And he had a crazy network as a result. So the thing that's the most important when it comes to building wealth is creating ideas around where you actually want to go. So I was talking to this mentor of mine when I bought my first flashy car. It was a bright yellow BMW M4. He said,
Hey, where do you park your car?
I said, I park it wherever I'm going because I'm like proud of it. And he's like, wow, when I got my first Porsche, I parked it around the block, like 3 blocks away, because I was so ashamed that I would have such a nice car because I didn't grow up like that. And so I realized like there was a big differentiator about like I had done a lot of self-work where like that car actually was manifest. Like I manifested it and I felt super comfortable with it, where for him it came kind of early. He didn't feel really comfortable with it. Now again, you don't have to care about cars or houses or watches or fancy belts or fancy shoes. Nobody cares. It's all about what are things you actually value. Of the things that you value, what do you actually want? And the most important thing about that is you want to think to yourself, like, what do I want? So I actually have people write down lists of what they want. Again, you don't have to artificially, again, like if you don't care about cars, it's stupid to spend money on cars. There's a guy I listened to who's like one of the Wall Street billionaires. He's still flying coach. He's still driving a Honda. Like he doesn't care about cars. He doesn't care about planes. He doesn't need it. But what are the things that matter? This guy gave $1 billion to one particular charity. So like giving was very important. So create an idea around what you want. Figure out how much that stuff actually costs, right? I remember looking at this beautiful house. I like the beach. I looked at one house, I'm $5 million right on the water. I'm like, that's awesome. But right above it in Zillow was a $50 million house. I looked, I'm like, holy moly, that's what I really want. Then I found myself with all my negative beliefs. I can't afford that. How could someone like me have a house like that? But I realized like the person that's actually living in that house or selling a house, they probably started like me. They're a kid with a vision, with an idea. They brought value to people. Why can't I have have that. So figure out what you want, figure out how much money that's actually going to cost. That becomes the amount of money you want to generate. Then you have to figure out, what can I do to start creating that kind of value? Those are some of the ideas around building the mindset around really building and acquiring wealth, especially if you don't start from there. Just being able to have that clarity and take action is going to do tremendous things for you. No one who's super successful is doing it on their own. They have networks, they build systems. It's all like something you can actually do once you're willing to step in the arena and realize it is doable. So if this is helpful for you, please don't hesitate. Reach out, businesslift.com. We'd love to talk to you if you're interested in building a coaching, consulting, mentoring business, or just kind of helping yourself grow. Thank you very much.